I just don't want to be the scapegoat. I want to be, only way I've been practicing my whole life to live my life is to be responsible for what I do. I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male did. I don't know. Yes, I am going to say that I'm a thug. That's because I came from the gutter and I'm still here.
What would you say are some of the differences between Black American culture and your experience as an African man living through Europe and the Middle East and stuff?
Wow. I think that's a tricky one because I think a lot of what is the way Black Americans or even Black American culture is portrayed through the media, whether that's modern day TV or music and so on, I don't think it's an accurate representation of the typical actual Black American person.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are certain stereotypes and ways of making Black men and Black women come across, which, yes, there are people who are like that, but they're not really sharing the whole picture. They're not showing the, they're not showing the average family oriented person who's just, going to work and not being a degenerate in any type of way. And I think a lot of the degeneracy gets promoted and pushed, and that's not unique to Black people. It is across the spectrum, but I think that through various mechanisms, there are certain portrayals of Black Americans in particular, which get pushed through the media, not just here in the USA, by the way, but internationally.
Well, I actually patterned my look after what they called the town tramp in my hometown when I was a little girl. This woman that used to walk the streets had all this makeup and hair, high heel shoes, and I thought she was so beautiful. And everybody used to say, "Oh, she ain't nothing but trash." And I used to say, "Well, that's what I'm gonna be when I grow up, trash."
And it sort of fortifies certain stereotypes, which I think oftentimes are not, number one, are not accurate. I think it's an imbalanced representation, but also not exactly wholesome or positive. And I think over the past few decades, it seems like there's been a move, intentionally or not, or maybe both, to reinforce certain negative stereotypes.
I just want to protect her, I don't want her to lose it. I don't want her to, go through anything I went through. I don't wish that upon anybody.
Wow! I feel violated right now. Wow.
Lean into me again. You smell amazing. How old are you?
Thank you.
How old are you?
I'm 16. I'll be 17 in like 2 weeks.
I don't ever remember smelling that good at 16. Like that was bad.
Yeah.
Wow, look at your eyes. What music are you listening to?
Would you rather have to be naked on stage during one full song, or drink a cup of blended worms? Answer Justin Bieber.
I have like little girl fans. I can't go.
You guys never gave me the sex talk. Okay. So why don't you give me the sex talk? I feel uncomfortable right now. Oh. Why do you want to know the sex talk from a 15-year-old boy? That's pretty weird.
And I know that most Americans don't leave the USA and don't travel, and perhaps do not see how those images and views get ingrained around the world.
Right. Like African blacks are different than American blacks.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are Caribbean. We're mixed.
Yeah.
But Jamaicans, Haitians, Caribbean black people are different in many ways, of values and culture. I dare I say they take themselves more seriously than American blacks. How much would you say rap music has impacted American black culture, and of course, the world, because we export our media in a positive way, but then also in a negative way?
It's hard, man. It's a complicated question, because I'm very aware that we're talking about tens and in some instances hundreds of millions of people. So, I mean, there's about 40 million or so Black Americans in the USA. That's a nation's worth of people, a pretty large nation's worth of people. So I'm somewhat hesitant to, I'm very much an individualist on many levels. So I don't like to make broad statements of like, oh, okay, Black Americans are like this, or this is the conception around them, because it's too big a group and with so much diversity and different types of people in it that just like I wouldn't do the same with Asian Americans or white Americans or Jewish Americans. It's such a big group. But I think that in terms of rap culture, it's simultaneously a reflection and also something that does shape culture and perception. So it's both. It's kind of this chicken and the egg thing, right? Does art influence life? Does life influence art? And I think it's both. It's both, right?
And so in Brooklyn, if you start taking an interest in the universe, and there are other rhymers, rappers, you had to be a little weird for doing that. Isn't that right? It can't have been normal.
It depends on, it comes off as not being normal to most. But
I wasn't normal doing it, and I wasn't even a rapper.
Well, it depends on how you deliver it. If I'm delivering it in a way where I'm like, Earth is the third planet.
Okay.
And the sun shines light.
Right. Okay. That doesn't play.
Right.
Not in Brooklyn. Not in. Okay.
But if it's in a way where you're saying my universe run like clockworks forever, my words are pulled together, sudden change in the weather, the nature and the scale of events don't make sense. A storm with no one in, you're drawn in by immense gravity that's going mad. Clouds of dust and debris moving at colossal speeds. They crush an MC. So you speak about the universe and planets, but you still incorporate the element of MCing.
And the mood and the feeling.
The feeling, yes.
And so
you look at hip hop, whether you're looking at gangster rap and the stuff that's more in that vein, or if you're looking at stuff that's just more even what people might have called conscious hip hop, or stuff that's more political. You talked about Public Enemy and so on.
But the key thing is that if you're going to make connections which are innovative, to connect two experiences together, that you have to not have the same bag of experiences as everyone else does, or else you're going to make the same connections, and then you won't be innovative, and then nobody will give you an award. So what you got to do is get different experiences than the normal course of events. And one of the funny things about being bright is everyone puts you on this path. To go to high school, go to college. I've heard about some kid that's 14 on his way to Stanford, and that's great. That's sort of out of the ordinary. But you might want to think about going to Paris and being a poet for a few years, or you might want to go to a third world country. I'd highly advise that, and see people and lepers with their hands falling off and all that stuff. It's very much so worth doing. Fall in love with two people at once. Walt Disney took LSD. Do you know that? He did once. And that's where the idea for Fantasia came from. It's true. And you can go hear stories about all these people, and the key thing that comes through is that they had a variety of experiences which they could draw upon.
I feel like some people in this world need a lesson in business. Something very simple to understand is the music business. The most important part being the business element of it. Why is it that every culture around the world has a top tier side of the industry that quickly disappears, and then they have a quote unquote debased culture that seems to be the one that is dominant? Firstly, a simple answer is it's because it's easy to reproduce, which is what they want. The only difference is, for some reason, African Americans get the most hate for taking advantage of this business. No matter how debased, no matter how predatory, no matter how bad and bad motivational the European side is, from naked wrestlers at the Oscars to naked wrestlers during wrestling to Lady Gaga to Dolly Parton to any of these people in Hollywood. They want us to take those as isolated incidences, just celebrities being celebrities. But as Tupac said, when it comes to the black man, we have to be responsible for all black people. And like he said, that's impossible, because no matter how big the group of good people is, there'll always be a bad element, and that bad element will be the one they pay, because that's what people want to see. If we want to jump forward and look at a culture that is trying their best to get rid of the bad element, let's look at Douyin. If you don't know what that is, that's TikTok in China. TikTok in China? Why is TikTok in China a big thing? Don't they have like maths and stuff? Well, if you believe some of the news, which reports half truths, then you will believe that everyone in China, which by the way, it's a big chunk, something like 900 million people, I don't even know, have TikTok of China, Douyin. You would think that everyone's watching math, as they say, but it's not true, as we can see in this article.
In China, Douyin algorithm actually shows useful stuff, as in like a math, science, like educational stuff. But in America, the algorithm feeds them garbage to almost like hurt them culturally and just dumb them down or something like that. Do you think there's some truth to it?
For me, I think the reason why there's not a lot of negative contents in Douyin is because, first of all, Chinese government, they actually regulate those contents a lot, especially if you switch the application to like a teenager mode, which, for example, if some contents involve guns, alcohol, or cigarettes, probably will not show up in the teenager mode. The other thing is, like, a lot of Chinese teenagers, they don't get the chance to use their cell phone that much because they have to study all the time. Chinese parents wouldn't allow those kids to use their cell phone all day long, like every day.
Now, while the Chinese government does offer maths and science to the Chinese citizens, it's not exactly the most viewed category. The most viewed category is beauty, travel, and food, and then everything else is way behind. And I watched a CNBC article that talked about, video that talked about how the thing operates. I must put it in the link. And it also talked about the fact that there's drinking and frivolity and whatever, the same stuff that you will find almost everywhere. Now, of course, stuff that's completely gone, which the only way of doing it is through a government level, because most people are going to seek it out anyway. And speaking of seeking it out, did you know that 30% of Chinese people in the last month used a VPN so that they could view stuff that's not even allowed in China? I wonder why they would do that. But to continue with this, the viral things are still catchy music, creative editing, and stuff like that, and storytelling. The idea that everyone is watching maths and science is a fairy tale. Any app that wants to use maths and science as the thing that they're pushing first and foremost will fail on arrival. And that's just a fact, and we all know that. Now, what about the fact that stuff like Instagram and TikTok, they make people feel bad, and then people have to buy products in order to feel better? Well, no place on this earth is this worse than TikTok, Douyin, of China. And the fact that e-commerce is one of the most used things for TikTok or Douyin because of course beauty is right at the top. And what are you going to do if you watch that stuff all day? Trying to regulate TikTok is like trying to capture the waves with a bucket, because people will always gravitate to what people want. Like Steve Jobs said, people want to see things that are mind numbing. And that's the worst part of the conspiracy of the government trying to control people. In this case, you can't say the government is trying to control people, because the government is actively trying to help people, but it's not working. Even if the American government was trying its best to control people, it would be aided not by the fact that they are some super geniuses, but simply because people don't mind this type of content. People have been told over and over again that they're being watched by the American government. That doesn't bother them. They keep buying these by the thousands, by the millions, by the billions. There's nothing you can do to deter people away from this type of addictive, instinctive stuff that humans like. Now, I want to make sure I separate the weird stuff that Hollywood does and also the Chinese entertainment industry. There's so many articles I could read about that. Or the American entertainment industry, or the Japanese entertainment industry, or the African entertainment industry, or Europe's entertainment industry when it comes to managers and casting couches and all that other stuff. You know, the good stuff that they do behind the scenes to prove how noble they are. Not to mention the drug consumption that everybody knows about. One by one. Remember the 27ers Club? One by one. We have so many things to deal with in entertainment that if you were going to blame one culture for the fall, you are literally putting the weight of the world on that culture. And of course, that culture is going to look terrible in comparison. I showed the video of Neil deGrasse Tyson, and you know what's funny? Someone like that being on camera, for some reason, I've never seen anybody say that's a reflection of black culture, because anything positive will never be that. Not to people who are trying to make the culture seem insane. And some people think they're calling out other black people by saying that you're not calling anybody out. These people, they're going after money, they're going after fame. Just like anybody of any other culture, you're not calling out the right people. If you want to call out the right people, call out the government.
It's all on me. And in the report and all these charges, I didn't do nothing. I'm charged with being in concert with some guys. Well, where they at? Why me? Because I'm Tupac. No, I'm not angry at them. I'm angry at the system. I don't want nobody else to go to jail. You know what I'm saying? But I don't want to go to jail for something I didn't do. You know what I'm saying? I just don't want to be the scapegoat. I want to be, only way I've been practicing my whole life to live my life is to be responsible for what I do. I don't know how to be responsible for what every black male did. I don't know. Yes, I am going to say that I'm a thug. That's because I came from the gutter and I'm still here.